It's almost like the offspring of a love triangle between an AP Royal Oak, a Hublot Big Bang, and a TISSOT PRX. And then you've got this crazy regulator dial. I mean, it really shouldn't work, but it does. And I just think it's brilliant. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Simon and I mostly talk about watches. Now, while I'd probably get more views if I just did videos roasting watches, I like to feature watches that I like and that get me excited. And the one I want to show you today, the new Alpine Extreme Regulator by ALPINA, is certainly one of those. It was released at Geneva Watch Days 2022, and while at the time there was a lot of hype around the new Tudor Pelagos 39 and that new Doxa Army, this new release was one that really grabbed my attention. And when I first saw the press images, I reached out to the brand and I was absolutely delighted when the team at ALPINA sent me this one to take a look at. As well as being one of the standout releases from Geneva Watch Days for me, I think that this is a really important new release for the brand. You see, whilst ALPINA Watches has a long and rich history, in the UK at least, I don't think that the brand gets the attention that it deserves, and I think this watch might be about to change that. This Alpine Extreme Regulator demonstrates what ALPINA is capable of, both from a design and a watchmaking perspective. And since this was released just a few months ago, we've already begun to see the design language employed here appear in other models. So what exactly is a regulator? Well, in the watch world, the term regulator refers to a watch that has separate dials or subdials for the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. Regulator clocks were first developed in the mid-18th century. Separating the hours and the minutes and the seconds was generally seen as a more accurate way of measuring time. But while the aesthetics of this watch may be new, the Extreme Regulator isn't entirely a new concept for ALPINA. You see, back in 2005, ALPINA launched the Avalanche Extreme Regulator Automatic, which was extreme mainly because of its size. It had an extremely large 48mm case, because it housed a modified version of the large Unitas 6498 movement. Thankfully, this new Alpine Extreme Regulator for 2022 is a much more wrist-friendly 41mm, with a height of 12mm. It has a robust look to this stainless steel case, and it's a sporty watch that's designed for extreme conditions. Certainly all the marketing features mountaineers and downhill skiers. It's got a cushion-shaped case with a raised round bezel, and it features a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. The sapphire crystal is completely flat, and it's got a healthy amount of anti-reflective coating. The crown is larger than you'll find on most watches, but it really suits the design of this case. It's got a blue rubber grip, and it screws down, helping to give this watch 200 meters of water resistance. It's flanked by elongated crown guards, and on the opposite side of the case, you've got this protruding section that mirrors the crown guards and balances the look. One of the things that grabs you is the way that this strap integrates into the case. Where the strap meets the lugs, it fits absolutely perfectly. There's just no gap at all. And even though the strap and the case are clearly of different materials, it's almost as though they're one. Sports watches with integrated bracelets aren't a new thing. I mean, they've been around since the 1970s. And when we think of integrated bracelets, I guess we tend to associate them with the designs of Gerald Genta, such as the AUDEMARS PIGUET Royal Oak, for example. But I think they've seen a real resurgence in recent years, and it's a trend that's been picked up by more mainstream brands too, if you think of watches like the Q Timex or the TISSOT PRX. Now, ALPINA have taken this concept and have executed it really well here. The way that strap integrates into the case and that raised round bezel with the 6 exposed screw heads is very Gerald Genter-esque, if that's even such a thing. But you can see where they've taken influence from other, more iconic watches. It's almost like the offspring of a love triangle between an AP Royal Oak, a Hublot Big Bang, and a TISSOT PRX. And then you've got this crazy regulator dial. I mean, it really shouldn't work, but it does. And I just think it's brilliant. And speaking of triangles, ALPINA's equilateral triangle icon appears in several places on this watch. Some of them are almost like little Easter eggs that you find. Obviously you've got it on the crown, but then if you look closely at those 6 screw heads on the bezel, it actually appears in those, as well as the screw heads on the deployant clasp. And of course, it makes up the pattern on that guilloche dial. And I think the dial on this watch is just gorgeous. But before we get on to that, guys, just a quick reminder to hit that thumbs up button if you're enjoying this video. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, then please take the opportunity to subscribe now and hit that bell icon to be notified of future videos. I've got something that's dropping in a couple of weeks and it's going to be absolutely massive, so you won't want to miss that. So the centre of this dial is in a gunmetal grey with a dark blue rehort and dark blue subdials. The minutes are indicated by the single hand mounted to the pinion in the centre of the dial, while the larger of the 2 subdials, positioned at the 10 o'clock, displays the hours, and there's a smaller running seconds subdial at 6. The ALPINA logo is found at the 3 o'clock position, and you've got a mixture of long and short baton markers around the dial, with dual batons at the 12 o'clock, or rather the 60-minute position in this case, and dagger-shaped hands. The indices and the hands are highly polished, and the finishing I think is as good as anything you'll see under $10,000, aside perhaps from Rolex and Grand Seiko. That integrated rubber strap is really supple, and it features a guilloche pattern running down the centre of it, but this time using rectangles instead of triangles. It fastens with a deployant clasp, which is all brushed, and it's signed with the ALPINA logo. Turn this watch over, and it's got an exhibition case back, through which you can see the AL650 movement. Interestingly, the movement in the 2005 Extreme Regulator was also called the AL650. However, that was a manual winding movement, whereas this one is automatic. And this movement appears to be based on a Sellita SW260-1. It has a 38-hour power reserve, and it beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, which makes it 4 Hz. It also features ALPINA's distinctive black rotor, which I think looks pretty cool. Now here in the UK, this watch has a retail price of £1,895, or if you're in the US, it's $2,295. Now, if the design speaks to you, then I think that this watch is actually a bit of a bargain, especially when you take into account the build quality, the fit and finish, and the work that's gone into creating that beautiful regulator dial. It's a limited edition, limited to 888 pieces worldwide. So if you think that this one deserves a place in your collection, then I wouldn't hang around for long. Any downsides? Well, there's that old saying, never meet your heroes. And while I think that ALPINA have absolutely nailed it with the design, and I love that regulator dial, sadly, this one wears a bit bigger than those dimensions would suggest. You see, even though on paper, the lug-to-lug measurement is 48mm, because of the way that this strap integrates, you have to actually measure the lug-to-lug distance from where the strap bends to curve around the wrist. And in that case, the true lug-to-lug measurement is more like 58mm. So sadly, this watch wears just a bit too big for my skinny wrists, which measure between 6¼ and 6½ inches on a good day. But look, anyone with more normal sized wrists, a bit more like a human than an insect, 7 inches or above for example, just won't find it to be a problem. So guys, I'd love to know what you think of this new ALPINA Alpine Extreme Regulator, so please let me know in the comments. As ever guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.